The sky above New York City was unusually clear that evening, as if the universe itself had decided to make way for something extraordinary. People on the streets stopped what they were doing, their eyes drawn upward toward a strange glow in the heavens. At first, it looked like a shooting star, but this light grew brighter and larger with each passing second. The hum of daily life, car horns, chatter, footsteps, faded into silence as everyone stood frozen, watching the impossible unfold. High above the Earth's atmosphere, a massive alien vessel descended slowly, its sleek metallic surface shimmering faintly under the sun's fading rays. It wasn't just big, it was enormous, dwarfing even the tallest skyscrapers below. Its design was unlike anything humanity had ever seen before. Smooth curves blended seamlessly with intricate patterns etched across its hull, glowing softly, in hues of blue and silver. There were no visible engines or thrusters, yet the ship moved with perfect precision, exuding an aura of quiet confidence. On the ground, Dr. Emily Dawson stood on the rooftop of a research facility, her arms crossed, tightly over her chest. She was a tall woman with sharp features and piercing green eyes that always seemed to be analyzing everything around her. Her dark hair was pulled back into a loose ponytail, and she wore a simple gray sweater paired with jeans. Despite her casual appearance, there was nothing ordinary about her mind. Emily was one of the brightest mathematicians in the world, known for solving problems others deemed unsolvable. But tonight she felt uneasy. Something about the ship unsettled her. Not fear exactly, but a deep sense of curiosity mixed with apprehension. Beside her stood Dr. Ryan Carter, her colleague and close friend. Unlike Emily, Ryan radiated calmness. He leaned casually against the railing, his hands stuffed into the pockets of his leather jacket. With his tousled brown hair and warm smile, he often came across as approachable, almost laid back, but those who knew him understood that beneath his easygoing exterior lay a brilliant astrophysicist capable of unraveling the mysteries of the cosmos. Right now, though, he was more focused on observing Emily than the spectacle in the sky. "You okay?" Ryan asked, tilting his head slightly to catch her gaze. Emily didn't respond immediately. Instead, she adjusted her glasses, a nervous habit, and continued staring at the ship. "I don't know," she admitted finally. "This feels different, like we're not prepared for whatever's coming." Ryan chuckled softly, trying to lighten the mood. "Well, when aliens show up uninvited, I guess you can't blame us for being a little out of practice." Despite his attempt at humor, Emily remained serious. "It's not just that," she said. "Look at it. That thing screams advanced technology. What happens if they decide we're not worth talking to? Or worse, what if they think we're some kind of threat?" Ryan straightened up, his expression turning thoughtful. "We'll cross that bridge when we get to it," he replied. "For now, all we can do is wait and see." As if on cue, the ship began to hover directly above Central Park. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through the buildings and sending shivers down people's spines. Then, without warning, a beam of light shot down from the vessel, illuminating a large open area in the park. Within seconds, a holographic projection appeared, towering several stories high. It depicted a group of humanoid figures dressed in flowing robes, their elongated limbs and luminous skin making them appear both beautiful and otherworldly. One of the figures stepped forward, raising a hand in what seemed like a gesture of peace. Its voice echoed across the city, amplified yet gentle, speaking in flawless English. "People of Earth, we mean you no harm. We are the Zorathians, explorers of the stars and seekers of knowledge. Our journey has brought us here today to learn from your species and share our own discoveries." The crowd erupted into murmurs, a mix of awe and disbelief rippling through the masses. Some cheered, while others clutched their loved ones, unsure of what to make of this sudden intrusion. Cameras flashed, phones recorded, and social media feeds exploded with speculation. Yet amidst the chaos, Emily and Ryan exchanged a knowing glance. They had been briefed earlier by government officials about the possibility of contact, though neither expected it to happen so soon, or so dramatically. Minutes later, A convoy of black SUVs arrived at the scene, carrying representatives from various global organizations. Among them was General Harold Mitchell, a stern man in his late 50s with graying temples and a no-nonsense attitude. He approached Emily and Ryan with purposeful strides, his boots clicking against the pavement. Dr. Dawson, Dr. Carter. He greeted them curtly. You've been selected to represent humanity during initial communications. Be ready to leave within the hour. Emily blinked in surprise. Us? Why us specifically? Mitchell's lips pressed into a thin line. Because you two have proven yourselves capable of handling complex problems under pressure, and because, frankly, these aliens seem particularly interested in science. If anyone can hold their own against them, it's you. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Hold our own? Against aliens? It's not a battle, Mitchell snapped. But we need to show them we're not primitives. You understand? Both scientists nodded reluctantly, though Emily couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into uncharted territory. As the general walked away to coordinate logistics, Ryan turned to her with a wry grin. Well, looks like we're going to meet some extraterrestrials. Exciting, right? Emily sighed, rubbing her temples. Exciting isn't exactly the word I'd use. An hour later, Emily and Ryan found themselves inside a secure tent set up near the holographic projection. Alongside them were linguists, physicists, and diplomats, all preparing for what would likely be the most important conversation in human history. Through translators and screens, they watched as the Zorathians introduced themselves further, explaining their mission and goals. Their leader, a tall figure named Kale Rin, spoke with an air of authority that bordered on arrogance. His words carried a subtle undertone of superiority, as if he already assumed humans would pale in comparison to his species. When it came time for questions, Emily stepped forward hesitantly, microphone in hand. If you're here to learn, she began, choosing her words carefully, then perhaps you could tell us what you already know about Earth? Have you studied us before arriving? Kale Rin tilted his head, his glowing eyes narrowing slightly. We have observed your planet from afar, he admitted. Your technological advancements are modest. However, we believe your potential lies elsewhere, in creativity perhaps, or adaptability. Emily frowned at the condescending tone but forced herself to remain composed. Beside her, Ryan whispered, Stay cool. Don't let him rattle you. Taking a deep breath, Emily pressed on. Creativity and adaptability are strengths we value highly, but maybe there's more to us than meets the eye. Maybe we can surprise you. Kale Rin smirked faintly, clearly amused by her boldness. Very well, he said. Let us test this theory. Present us with a problem, one that showcases your intellectual capabilities. If you succeed, we will take your species seriously. The challenge hung in the air, heavy with implications. Emily glanced at Ryan, who gave her an encouraging nod. This was their chance, not just to prove themselves, but to show the entire world that humanity was far more than the sum of its parts. And so, with determination burning in her heart, Emily accepted the challenge, setting the stage for an encounter that would change everything. Little did she know, this was only the beginning. The tension in the air was palpable as Emily Dawson and Ryan Carter stepped forward to face the Zorathians. The holographic projection of Kale Rin loomed above them, his elongated form shimmering faintly in the soft glow of the alien technology. His expression remained unreadable, but there was a subtle arrogance in the way he tilted his head, as if he were humoring children playing at being scientists. Emily clenched her fists briefly before forcing herself to relax. She couldn't let him rattle her, not now, not when so much was at stake. Dr. Dawson, Kale Rin began, his voice smooth and measured. You have claimed that humanity possesses qualities beyond what we might expect. Prove it. Solve this. With a wave of his hand, a series of intricate equations appeared in the air between them. They floated like glowing constellations, each symbol pulsing with light. To the untrained eye, it looked like an indecipherable mess of shapes and numbers. But Emily's mind immediately went to work, her years of training kicking in as she scanned the problem for patterns. Beside her, Ryan leaned closer, his brow furrowed in concentration. "This is impressive," Ryan muttered under his breath. "But it's not impossible." Emily nodded sharply. "It's a test of quantum mechanics," she whispered back, keeping her voice low so only Ryan could hear. "They're trying to see how we handle uncertainty principles." Cale Rin watched them intently, his glowing eyes narrowing slightly. "You have 5 minutes to provide a solution," he announced. "Begin." The clock started ticking, and for a moment Emily felt the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders. This wasn't just about solving a math problem. It was about proving humanity's worth, to these aliens, to the watching crowd, and to herself. Taking a deep breath, she focused on the task at hand. Her fingers twitched as if she wished she had a pen and paper, but she knew she'd have to rely on mental calculations alone. Ryan glanced at her, sensing her hesitation. "You've got this," he said quietly. "Just break it down step by step." She nodded again, feeling a renewed sense of determination. Slowly, methodically, she began dissecting the equation. It was complex, yes, but not insurmountable. The problem revolved around predicting the behavior of subatomic particles within a fluctuating energy field, a challenge that pushed the boundaries of theoretical physics. As Emily worked through the variables, she noticed something peculiar. The Zorathians' formula contained a flaw, a small but significant oversight that would render their entire calculation inaccurate. Her lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. "Gotcha," she murmured softly. "What?" Ryan asked, leaning closer. "There's a mistake here," Emily explained, pointing to one section of the floating equation. "See this coefficient? It doesn't account for interference from external forces. If you adjust it—" She trailed off, quickly recalculating the values in her head. Ryan's eyes widened in realization. "That's brilliant," he breathed. "You're right. They missed it entirely." Before they could celebrate, Emily turned back to Cale Rin, her voice steady and confident. "Your equation is incomplete," she stated plainly. "If you factor in external interference, the solution becomes clear." Without waiting for permission, she began rearranging the symbols in midair, using gestures provided by the holographic interface. To the astonishment of everyone present, the glowing equations shifted and realigned themselves, forming a new pattern that pulsed brightly. A murmur rippled through the gathered crowd, and even some of the Zorathians exchanged uncertain glances. Cale Rin's smug demeanor faltered for the briefest moment, though he quickly masked it with a neutral expression. "Interesting," he said coolly. "You are correct. However, such errors are minor. Let us proceed to a more challenging test." Emily crossed her arms, refusing to be intimidated. "Bring it on," she replied, her tone unwavering. The next problem appeared almost instantly, this time involving multidimensional geometry. The equations spiraled outward in 3 dimensions, creating a dazzling display of mathematical complexity. Emily stared at it for a long moment, her mind racing. This one was harder, far harder, but she could feel the pieces starting to click into place. Beside her, Ryan muttered calculations under his breath, offering suggestions and insights that helped clarify certain aspects of the puzzle. "You're doing great," Ryan encouraged her, his voice filled with quiet admiration. "Just keep going." As the minutes ticked by, Emily worked tirelessly, her focus absolute. She ignored the growing audience, the cameras flashing, and the weight of expectation pressing down on her. All that mattered was the problem in front. Shang-Shi. The air was thick with anticipation as Emily Dawson stood before the glowing equations, her mind racing faster than ever. The multi-dimensional geometry problem floated in front of her like a labyrinth of light, its complexity almost overwhelming. Yet despite the challenge, there was a spark of excitement in her eyes, a quiet confidence that told Ryan Carter she wasn't about to back down. He watched her closely, his own thoughts swirling as he tried to piece together the fragments of the puzzle alongside her. Kale Rin, the Zorathian leader, observed them with an unreadable expression. His elongated frame remained still, but his luminous eyes betrayed a flicker of curiosity, or perhaps unease. For the first time since their arrival, it seemed as though the aliens were no longer entirely certain of their superiority. The humans had proven themselves capable, and Kale Rin couldn't ignore the possibility that Earth might harbor more surprises. "You're running out of time," Kale Rin announced, his tone calm but edged with impatience. "Do you require assistance?" Emily didn't look up. Her focus was absolute, her fingers tracing invisible lines in the air as she worked through the problem step by step. "We don't need help," she replied firmly, her voice cutting through the tension. "Just give us a moment." Ryan stepped closer, his gaze fixed on the floating symbols. "This part here," he said, pointing to a cluster of variables. "It's recursive. If we simplify it, we can isolate the core equation." Emily nodded, her lips moving silently as she processed his suggestion. "You're right," she murmured. "That section repeats itself infinitely. We can collapse it into a single function." With swift, deliberate gestures, she manipulated the holographic interface, folding the complex layers of the equation into something far more manageable. The glowing patterns shifted and reformed, pulsing brighter as the solution began to take shape. The crowd outside the tent erupted into murmurs, their voices carrying a mix of awe and disbelief. News outlets broadcasted the event live across the globe, with commentators struggling to explain what they were witnessing. To the average person, the equations might as well have been written in another language, but the significance of Emily's actions wasn't lost on anyone. Humanity was holding its own against beings who claimed to be vastly superior. Kale Rin's assistant Varnick leaned in to whisper something to him. Though their words were inaudible, the subtle exchange spoke volumes. The Zorathians were beginning to realize that Earth scientists weren't just lucky, they were skilled, perhaps even dangerously so. As the final pieces of the puzzle fell into place, Emily straightened up, her shoulders squared with pride. "Here's your solution," she declared, gesturing toward the now complete equation. It hung in the air, elegant and precise, its symmetry undeniable. The crowd cheered, and even some of the Zorathians exchanged impressed glances. Kale Rin studied the result for a long moment before nodding slowly. "Impressive," he admitted, his voice tinged with reluctant admiration. "But this is only the beginning. There is much more to evaluate." Emily met his gaze without flinching. "Then keep going," she challenged. "We're ready." Later that evening, after the initial excitement had died down, Emily and Ryan found themselves alone in a makeshift briefing room. The space was small and sparsely furnished, with only a table, a few chairs, and a monitor displaying replays of the day's events. Exhaustion clung to them both, but neither could bring themselves to rest. Not yet. "That was insane," Ryan said, sinking into one of the chairs. He ran a hand through his tousled brown hair, shaking his head in disbelief. "I mean, I knew. You were good, but wow, you really showed them." Emily smiled faintly, though her expression remained thoughtful. She sat down across from him, resting her elbows on the table. "It's not just me," she replied. "You helped too. Without your input, I wouldn't have figured out that recursive loop as quickly." Ryan shrugged modestly. "Still, you're the one who put it all together. You've got a gift, Em. Always have." For a moment they sat in silence, the weight of the day settling over them. Then Emily leaned forward, her green eyes sharp with determination. "There's something odd about all this," she said quietly. "Did you notice how familiar some of their equations felt?" Ryan frowned. "Familiar? What do you mean?" Emily hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Some of the patterns they used, especially in the quantum mechanics problem, they reminded me of theories I've seen before. Not modern ones, though, older ones, like ancient mathematics." "Ancient?" Ryan echoed, his brow furrowing further. "You think they borrowed ideas from Earth?" "I don't know," Emily admitted. "But it's worth looking into." Maybe they underestimated us because they assumed we wouldn't recognize their sources. Ryan nodded slowly, his mind racing with possibilities. If that's true, then we might have an edge. Knowledge they didn't expect us to possess. Before they could delve deeper into the topic, the door opened and General Harold Mitchell entered. His stern demeanor hadn't softened since earlier, but there was a hint of respect in his gaze as he looked at Emily. "Good work today," he said, gruffly. "You made humanity proud." "Thank you, sir," Emily replied, though her tone was reserved. "But we're not done yet. They're planning more tests and we need to prepare." Mitchell nodded. "Agreed. That's why I'm here, to give you access to whatever resources you need. Archives, research papers, anything. Just say the word." Emily glanced at Ryan, who gave her an encouraging nod. "Actually," she said, turning back to the general, "there is something. A manuscript I remember hearing about during my graduate studies. It contains advanced mathematical theories, but it's been largely forgotten. If we can find it, it might give us an advantage." Mitchell raised an eyebrow. "A manuscript? From where?" "It's stored at MIT," Emily explained. "Written by a mathematician named Elias Munro decades ago. Some of his work predates modern discoveries, but it's eerily ahead of its time." The general considered this for a moment before nodding again. "I'll arrange for it to be retrieved. In the meantime, get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be another long day." After Mitchell left, Ryan turned to Emily with a grin. "Elias Munro, huh? Sounds like we're diving into history." "History has a way of surprising people," Emily replied, her voice firm. "And if those aliens think they've seen everything humanity has to offer, they're in for a rude awakening." The next morning, the manuscript arrived, delivered by a team of government agents who treated it like a priceless artifact. The document was old, its pages yellowed with age, but the equations within were as clear as the day they were written. Emily and Ryan pored over it together, their excitement growing with each passing hour. "This is incredible," Ryan said, flipping through the pages. "Look at these fractal designs. They're practically identical to what the Zorathians showed us yesterday." Emily nodded, her heart pounding with anticipation. "Exactly. Whatever Munro discovered, it aligns perfectly with their technology. No wonder they thought they had the upper hand." By the time the sun set, they had uncovered enough to formulate a strategy. When the Zorathians returned the following day, Emily and Ryan would be ready, not just to solve problems, but to challenge the very foundation of the aliens' assumptions. As they prepared for the next round of tests, Emily felt a sense of purpose she hadn't experienced in years. This wasn't just about proving humanity's worth. It was about showing the universe that knowledge belonged to everyone, and that sometimes the most unexpected places held the greatest wisdom. The morning sun cast a golden glow over the city as Emily Dawson and Ryan Carter prepared for the next phase of their encounter with the Zorathians. Armed with the manuscript written by Elias Munro, they felt a renewed sense of confidence. The ancient equations once thought to be mere curiosities now seemed like keys to unlocking a deeper understanding of the aliens' technology, and perhaps even their weaknesses. Inside the secure tent set up near Central Park, the atmosphere was tense but focused. Government officials, scientists, and military personnel bustled around, ensuring everything was in place for the day's events. At the center of it all stood Emily and Ryan, poring over the yellowed pages of Munro's work. Each equation told a story, one that hinted at connections between Earth's forgotten knowledge and the advanced science of the Zorathians. As they reviewed the manuscript, Emily noticed something remarkable. Many of the patterns and formulas mirrored concepts found in ancient civilizations, Mayan calendars, Indian Vedic mathematics, and even early Greek geometry. It wasn't just coincidence. It was evidence of a shared intellectual heritage that transcended time and space. "Ryan," Emily said suddenly, her voice tinged with urgency, "look at this section. These symbols, they're almost identical to Mayan astronomical charts." Ryan leaned closer, his eyes scanning the page. "You're right," he murmured. "And this part here? It looks like an algorithm used in Vedic math to calculate planetary movements." How did Monroe know about these? Emily shook her head, her mind racing. I don't think he knew them in the traditional sense. Maybe he rediscovered them, or maybe someone else did and passed them down. Either way, it's clear these ideas have been around for centuries. The Zorathians didn't invent them, they borrowed them. Ryan frowned, his expression thoughtful. If that's true, then they're not as original as they claim to be. They've been using Earth's knowledge without giving credit where it's due. Emily nodded sharply. Exactly, and I think it's time we called them out on it. When Kyle Rinn and his delegation appeared via holographic projection later, that afternoon the tension in the room was palpable. The alien leader's demeanor remained calm, but there was a subtle edge to his tone, a mix of curiosity and caution, as if he sensed the humans were onto something. Dr. Dawson, Kyle Rinn began, his glowing eyes fixed on her. Are you prepared for today's challenge? Emily stepped forward, clutching a copy of Monroe's manuscript tightly in her hands. We are, she replied, her voice steady and confident. But before we begin, I'd like to address something. Kyle Rinn tilted his head slightly, intrigued. Go on. Emily took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. Your equations, the ones you presented yesterday, they contain elements that aren't unique to your species. In fact, many of them can be traced back to Earth's history. Ancient civilizations like the Maya and the Indians developed similar concepts long before humanity reached its current level of technological advancement. A murmur rippled through the crowd outside the tent, and even some of the Zorathians exchanged uneasy glances. Kyle Rinn's expression remained impassive, though his fingers twitched ever so slightly, a rare sign of discomfort. You accuse us of plagiarism? Kyle Rinn asked, his tone icy. No, Emily clarified quickly, holding up a hand. Not plagiarism exactly, but borrowing, yes. You've taken ideas from Earth's past and adapted them for your own purposes. Ideas that most humans have forgotten, but that doesn't mean they're not ours. Kyle Rinn hesitated, his luminous eyes narrowing as he studied her. Even if what you say is true, it does not diminish our achievements. Knowledge evolves. It is shared, refined, and improved upon. We have simply taken what existed and elevated it to new heights. Emily crossed her arms, refusing to back down. Fair enough, but don't pretend you're the only ones capable of innovation. Humanity has always thrived on creativity and collaboration. If anything, your reliance on our ancient knowledge proves that we're more alike than you'd like to admit. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence stretched taut, broken only by the faint hum of the holographic interface. Then, unexpectedly, Kyle Rinn let out a low chuckle. You are bold, Dr. Dawson. Few would dare confront us so directly. I'm not trying to offend you, Emily said firmly. I'm just pointing out the truth. Humanity may not have your technology, but we have something equally valuable. The ability to adapt, learn, and grow. And that's why we'll keep surprising you. Kyle Rinn regarded her for a long moment before nodding slowly. Very well. Let us proceed with today's test. Perhaps you will demonstrate the full extent of this adaptability. The challenge that followed was unlike anything Emily and Ryan had faced before. This time, the problem involved predicting the trajectory of a hypothetical asteroid field moving through multiple gravitational fields. It required not only advanced physics, but also creative problem-solving skills. The equations floated in the air, twisting and turning like strands of light, forming an intricate web of variables. Emily immediately recognized parallels between the problem and fractal design she'd seen in Monroe's manuscript. She turned to Ryan, her excitement barely contained. This is it, she whispered. The solution lies in self-similarity. Just like the patterns in nature, Ryan nodded, catching on quickly. If we treat each asteroid as part of a larger system, we can map their movements using fractal geometry. Working together, they began manipulating the holographic interface, applying Monroe's theories to the problem. As they did, the glowing equations shifted and reformed, aligning themselves into a cohesive pattern. The process was painstaking, but every step brought them closer to the answer. Outside the tent, the crowd watched in awe as the complex calculations unfolded. Cameras flashed, capturing every moment, while commentators struggled to explain the significance of what they were seeing. Even the Zorathians seemed impressed, their stoic expressions softening slightly as they observed the humans' progress. Finally, after what felt like hours, Emily and Ryan completed the solution. The final equation hung in the air, elegant and precise, its symmetry undeniable. A collective gasp swept through the audience, followed by thunderous applause. Cale Rin stepped forward, his glowing eyes reflecting a mixture of admiration and frustration. "Once again you have succeeded," he admitted, his voice tinged with reluctant respect. "It seems humanity possesses qualities we underestimated." Emily met his gaze without flinching. "Underestimating us was your mistake," she replied. "We may not have your ships or weapons, but we have something just as powerful, the drive to understand and improve. That's what sets us apart." Cale Rin nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. "Perhaps there is more to learn from your species than we anticipated. We shall see." As the holographic projection faded, leaving the tent bathed in natural sunlight, Emily and Ryan exchanged a triumphant glance. They had proven themselves once again, not just to the Zorathians but to the entire world. And yet they both knew this was far from over. There were still mysteries to unravel, challenges to face, and lessons to be learned. For now, though, they allowed themselves a moment of quiet satisfaction. Humanity had risen to the occasion, showing the universe that it wasn't just a passive observer, it was a participant ready to shape its own destiny. The victory was sweet, but it didn't last long. Emily Dawson and Ryan Carter barely had time to process their success before the Zorathians announced a new challenge, one they claimed would push humanity's limits further than ever before. This time, Cale Rin himself presented the problem, his glowing eyes gleaming with a mix of curiosity and determination. "Your previous solutions were impressive," he began, his voice calm but firm. "But now we will test your ability to innovate, under pressure. Solve this equation and you will prove that humanity is truly capable of original thought." With a wave of his hand, a series of intricate patterns appeared in the air. Unlike the earlier challenges, these weren't just mathematical equations. They were multidimensional constructs that seemed to shift and twist as if alive. The glowing symbols pulsed rhythmically, creating an almost hypnotic effect. To the untrained eye, it looked like chaos, but Emily saw something else entirely. "This isn't just math," she whispered, her mind racing. "It's a simulation, a model of some kind. Maybe a system or a structure." Ryan leaned closer, studying the shifting patterns. "You're right. It's not static, it's dynamic, like it's trying to adapt." Emily nodded, her fingers twitching as she tried to make sense of the problem. "Adaptation is key here. If we can identify the underlying rules governing its behavior, we might be able to predict its next move." Cale Rin watched them intently, his expression unreadable. "You have 30 minutes, he announced. "Begin." The clock started ticking, and the pressure mounted. Emily and Ryan worked side by side, their movements synchronized as they tackled the problem together. They quickly realized that brute force wouldn't work here. This wasn't about solving for X or Y. Instead, it required intuition, creativity, and a deep understanding of how systems evolved over time. As the minutes passed, Emily found herself drawing inspiration from unexpected places. Her thoughts drifted back to Monroe's manuscript, particularly the sections on fractals and self-similarity. She remembered how natural phenomena like snowflakes and river deltas followed similar principles, patterns repeating at different scales, yet always adapting to their environment. "It's like nature," she said suddenly, snapping her fingers. "The solution has to mimic the way ecosystems function: balance, feedback loops, resilience." Ryan caught on immediately. "So instead of forcing the system into a rigid framework, we let it guide us. We adapt to it, rather than the other way around." Together they began manipulating the holographic interface, experimenting with different approaches. Each attempt brought them closer to unraveling the mystery, though progress was slow and painstaking. Outside the tent, the crowd grew restless, unsure whether the humans were succeeding or simply stalling. Meanwhile, aboard the Zarathian vessel, tensions simmered among the alien delegation. Kael'Rin paced back and forth, his elongated limbs moving with quiet agitation. His assistant Varnick hovered nearby, watching him closely. "They are closer than anticipated," Varnick remarked cautiously. "Their methods are unconventional." Kael'Rin stopped mid-stride, his glowing eyes narrowing. "Unconventional does not mean superior," he snapped. "They are still limited by their primitive tools and instincts." "But what if they aren't?" Varnick pressed, his tone careful but persistent. "What if their approach reveals something we've overlooked? Something fundamental?" Kael'Rin hesitated, his expression darkening. For all his confidence, doubt had begun to creep in. He had always assumed humanity's potential was finite, constrained by its short lifespan and lack of advanced technology. Yet here they were, matching, and occasionally surpassing, the intellectual prowess of his own species. Back on Earth, Emily and Ryan were oblivious to the turmoil unfolding above them. Their focus remained entirely on the task at hand. As the final minutes ticked away, Emily made one last adjustment to the equation, her hands trembling slightly from exhaustion. The glowing pattern stabilized, forming a coherent structure that pulsed steadily, like a heartbeat. "We did it," Ryan breathed, his voice filled with awe. "Look at it. It's perfect." Emily stepped back, her chest rising and falling, as she caught her breath. "It's not just perfect," she said softly. "It's alive. A living system." When the timer reached 0, Kael'Rin reappeared via holographic projection, his expression guarded. He studied the completed equation for a long moment, his luminous eyes scanning every detail. Finally, he spoke. "You have succeeded," he admitted, his tone tinged with reluctant admiration. "This solution demonstrates a level of ingenuity we did not anticipate." The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices carrying a mix of relief and pride. Cameras flashed, capturing the historic moment, while commentators struggled to articulate the significance of what had just transpired. Emily and Ryan exchanged a triumphant glance, their bond stronger than ever. But the celebration was short-lived. As the noise died down, Kael'Rin addressed the humans once more. "Your performance has been enlightening," he said. "However, there is one final test. One that will determine whether humanity is ready to join the galactic community or remain isolated." Emily straightened up, her exhaustion replaced by renewed determination. "What's the test?" Kael'Rin paused, as if weighing his words carefully. "You must create something entirely new. An idea, a concept, or a design that has no precedent in either human or Zarathian history. Innovation without imitation." The room fell silent, the weight of the challenge sinking in. Creating something completely original was no small feat, especially under such scrutiny. Emily glanced at Ryan, who gave her an encouraging nod. "We'll figure it out," he said quietly. "We always do." That night, after the crowds had dispersed and the cameras had been turned off, Emily and Ryan retreated to the briefing room. Spread across the table were pages of notes, sketches, and equations, all remnants of their earlier efforts. Despite their fatigue, neither could bring themselves to rest. The final challenge weighed heavily on their minds. "What does entirely new even mean?" Ryan asked, running a hand through his tousled hair. "Everything builds on something else, right? Nothing's truly original." Emily nodded thoughtfully. "True. But maybe that's the point. Instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, we focus on combining existing ideas in ways no one's thought of before." Ryan frowned, considering this. Like fusing Monroe's fractals with quantum mechanics, or blending ancient geometry with modern algorithms? "Exactly," Emily replied, her eyes lighting up. "We take what we know and push it further. Stretch the boundaries until we find something that feels fresh." Inspired, they dove back into their work, bouncing ideas off each other as the hours slipped by. At first, their attempts felt clumsy and disjointed, but gradually, a pattern began to emerge. By merging concepts from disparate fields, biology, physics, art, and mathematics, they stumbled upon something extraordinary. It started as a simple sketch, a geometric shape that expanded infinitely outward, its edges branching like roots or veins. But as they refined it, adding layers of complexity, the design took on a life of its own. It wasn't just a shape, it was a blueprint for a self-sustaining system, capable of adapting and evolving over time. "This is it," Emily said finally, her voice trembling with excitement. "This is our creation." Ryan stared at the diagram, his jaw dropping slightly. "It's beautiful," he murmured, "and practical. If we built this, it could revolutionize everything. Energy production, resource management, even space travel." By dawn, they had transformed their idea into a fully realized proposal. Using the holographic interface, they projected the design into the air, allowing the glowing lines and curves to unfold in 3 dimensions. The result was breathtaking, a harmonious blend of form and function, simplicity and sophistication. When Cale Rin arrived the next morning, his expression was unreadable as he examined their creation. For several moments he said nothing, his luminous eyes scanning every detail. Then finally he spoke. "This," he began, his voice soft with wonder. "This is unprecedented. You have created something that defies categorization. Something neither of our species could have imagined alone." Emily met his gaze, her heart pounding with anticipation. "Does that mean we passed?" Cale Rin hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Yes, humanity has proven itself worthy, not just of survival but of collaboration. From this day forward, we will share our knowledge freely, and in return, we hope to learn from yours." The announcement sent shockwaves through the gathered crowd, sparking celebrations that echoed across the globe. Emily and Ryan stood side by side, their faces lit with quiet triumph. They had done more than solve a problem. They had opened a door to a future where humanity and aliens could grow together. For Emily, the moment was bittersweet. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she also knew that humanity's greatest strength lay in its ability to adapt, innovate, and persevere. And as she looked up at the massive alien vessel hovering above the city, she couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. For Earth, for the stars, and for everything that lay beyond.